Can the ANC root out corruption within its ranks and in the country? Joining us for this discussion is political economist Moeletsi Mbeki. Mbeki, good evening and thank you so much for your time tonight. I'll start with this 7-page letter. In the second paragraph, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the country's president and the president of the African National Congress, says, "I'm sure that you're aware that across the nation there is a sense of anger and disillusionment at reports of corruption in our response to the coronavirus pandemic." Should he not be addressing this to the state? Or is it again that instance when state and party, the lines are blurred?
Well, this is what comes out very clearly to me when I read the president's letter to ANC members. There is confusion between where the ANC starts and where the state of South Africa stops. And this is a very important problem that we have in this country, that somehow the ANC seems to think it owns the state of South Africa, or that there is no difference between the ANC and the state. The two are one and the same thing. Now, when you have this level of confusion by the top leader of South Africa, then you can imagine the consequences of that. The consequence is that you don't know who is responsible for doing what. The president sets out to tell us what the ANC is going to do about corruption in the state. The ANC has no power to do anything about corruption in the state. It is state agencies that have to do something about corruption in the state. For example, the people who are state employees who are swindling the state or taking advantage of the procurement, the urgent procurement of COVID-19 PPEs can belong to any party. It doesn't follow that the only civil servants or government officials who are being corrupt are only ANC members. They could be DA members, they could be EFF members, they could be ordinary citizens who do not belong to any party, but are employed by the state. So the first thing that
maybe as president of the country in the States, he has failed to deal with them at that level. And he's saying, maybe let me deal with you as the president of the party at party level, because clearly I've not been able to deal with this issue of corruption at state level.
So what the implication of that message is that, okay, if you are an ANC member, you will be dealt with by the party. What if I'm a DA member and I'm also corrupt and I'm also employed by the state? It means then I am free to be corrupt.
Now, why is it that even after the mandate of the 54th National Conference of the ANC, the party deciding that we are going to deal with corruption, we made the decision that we are going to deal with corruption, but we are still seeing an increase in corruption within the party, factionalism and dishonesty?
Well, as I say, there's a huge, if you don't understand the character of your country and the constitutional nature of your society. For example, there's a big outcry about two of Ace Magashule's sons being involved in state tenders. First, Ace Magashule is not a government official. He is a leader of a private organization called the ANC. Secondly, Magashule's sons, under the Bill of Rights, are free to practice their professions as long as they do it legally. So what we are seeing happening in South Africa is the leadership whipping up some kind of a mass hysteria, and I'm afraid the media is also guilty of this. And in the mass hysteria, the real challenge that the country faces with is not being dealt with in a constitutional way, in a proper way.
The conference further said that there's lack of integrity perceived by the public and has seriously damaged the image of the ANC. It seems this particular move is really concerned with the restoring of the image of the ANC. Will the ANC, or is it able to regain that moral high ground at this point?
Well, the challenge is President Ramaphosa addressing the image of the ANC, or is he out to combat corruption as the head of state of South Africa? What exactly is his priority? As you say, he seems to be more concerned about polishing the image of the ANC rather than in making sure, as the chief executive of South Africa, rather than making sure that the state is run according to the constitution of South Africa.
Now, will he, in this attempt, in your view, be able to isolate and root out this corrupt tendency?
Of course, it's not for him, by the way, to root out corruption in the state. It's for agents of the state like the police, the Hawks, the Director of Public Prosecutions. We have lots of institutions in this country which are state institutions. They must operate as state institutions, not with political interference from politicians. They must be allowed to operate as state institutions to do their jobs and combat criminality within the state, not by the ANC. The ANC has no rights and has no responsibility to combat criminality within the state. That is the job of state institutions, not of a political party, whether it's ANC or DA or EFF. It's the responsibility of state institutions.
We track a little bit more further corruption within the ANC and what's its origin or its genesis, so to speak. We'll talk to that with Dr. Mbeki staying with us when the news feed continues next. Yeah? Khuluma Jay futhi thina. Ngiyababamba ngiyabayeka mdu. Ephisi yami namhlanje angiyazi nje lo. True. 40 seconds. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. 30 seconds. Kitarumbek, we're back in 30 seconds. On the news feed, as we continue with that story, President Cyril Ramaphosa writing a 7-page letter addressing it to his party, saying we now need to admit that we have been complacent, we've been a part of the corruption story in the country, and we need to make a break with the past. Political economist Moeletsi Mbeki with us now to discuss this further. Now, Mbeki, the president writes saying, how do we get here? He says, for more than 26 years, the ANC has been in government at a national level and in most provinces and municipalities. This has meant that leadership positions in the ANC have been seen by some as the most direct route in the first instance, employment, and in the second instance to influence the inward of tenders and the distribution of other government resources. Does he capture there the root of how corruption comes about in this party?
Well, I think the president is missing a link in the foundation of corruption or the beginnings of corruption in this country. The beginnings of corruption was not in 1994. It actually started before 1994 during the negotiations towards the constitution. The private sector in this country realized that the ANC was going to be the government, or was going to be a big part of the government. And they started buying off ANC leaders by giving them shares in what were called Black Economic Empowerment companies, private sector companies. So when those people who were given free shares by the private sector, knowing fully well that they were going to become government officials, that, in my view, was the beginning of corruption, or was the roots of corruption in this country. So it did not start with people thinking, oh, if I become an ANC member, I will therefore get a job and I will therefore get a cushy job. No, that's not when it started. It actually started with Black economic empowerment, with the private sector buying off ANC leaders who became very wealthy even before 1994.
Was it naive of the ANC then to believe that the end of apartheid would herald a new era of integrity, honesty and ethical conduct almost by osmosis? It would happen by itself.
Yes, well, to put a nice face to it, one can say that they were being naive. But I think they also knew that there was something unsavory about accepting free money and free shares from private sector companies which they didn't work for, and then going to government, being shareholders in private companies. Because these were not free gifts. They knew they had to deliver something. One of the things they had to deliver was to go to get out of the nationalization of banks, of mines, of what were called monopoly industries at the time in the Freedom Charter. So that's what that money was buying. So they knew that they were being bought even as early as that. And that was corruption, whichever way you want to look at it. The fact that it was not government money, it was money of the private companies and of the private sector, doesn't get rid of the fact that it was abuse of office. It was being paid to use your office to influence economic decision making.
Let's look at the party itself. I read that the party has sent letters to branches, provinces, and every other organ of the party to say they need to compile lists of all those who are implicated in criminal activity, those who've got records, be it murder, rape, be it some kind of corruption, money laundering, and they need to bring these lists to the Secretary General, who similarly is leading that particular process. Talk to me about that particular approach and, of course, the character of Ace Magashule, who himself is under a dark cloud of some sort in as far as how he was handling himself as the Premier of the Free State, him leading that particular process.
Well, first you have to understand that the ANC is not a law enforcement agency in South Africa. So whether you are a member of the ANC or not a member of the ANC, if you commit crime, it is the duty of the state law enforcement agencies to bring you to book. It is not the duty of the ANC. The ANC, by the way, is classified legally as a private organization. So it has no powers to bring anyone to book for corruption. Now, if you are a member of the ANC, they are saying that X, Y, Z should happen and the branches should do 1, 2, 3. Well, of course, they are free as a private organization to do all those things, as long as they don't violate the Bill of Rights of those people. Remember, the Bill of Rights of South Africa, the Constitution of South Africa, overrides whatever constitution private organizations like the ANC may have. The Bill of Rights overrides them. So they will soon find out that many of the things that President Ramaphosa is saying should be done are actually not doable because many of them are against the Bill of Rights of the citizens of South Africa who are ANC members.
So when asked around the Integrity Commission, which is a body in the organization that's supposed to be overseeing issues of integrity, I believe in the NEC meeting, some said, well, when it comes to legal matters, sometimes the Integrity Commission is not really clear on the reasoning. This is why they are now going for an independent body to help them in this process around these legal matters. Is that going to help at all?
Well, the Integrity Commission of the ANC is a commission of the ANC. It's not a commission or an organ of the state of South Africa. So its powers are very limited, first to their members, as long as they don't violate those members' constitutional rights. So the Integrity Committee is part of the disciplinary process of the ANC, but that has to happen within the confines of the South African Constitution. It's not above the Constitution.
In the end, will they be able to stop corruption within their ranks?
No, of course they can't stop corruption within the ranks of the ANC, because one of our biggest problems in this country is that the ANC itself bypasses a very important consideration about employment of civil servants. Civil servants should be, and directors general in particular, should be employed by the Public Service Commission, not employed by the minister. So as we are now standing in South Africa, there's a lot of confusion about who do the civil servants answer to. Do they answer to the ANC? Do they answer to their party? Do they answer to the minister, as a political head of their department, and so on? So this is one of the things that the ANC itself has to understand, and it has to implement, which is the separation of powers, and that the civil service is not answerable to the ANC, it's answerable to Parliament, it's answerable to the executive, and the executive is answerable to Parliament. And it's not, the civil service is not answerable to the ANC.